Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Borrasca on a Tuesday. I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday here in America. I didn't put up last week's video for my Riverdale stuff, only because last week was a little crazy with me like going away and stuff, so that'll be this week, and so I want to apologize for that. And right now we're going to do the second to last episode of Borrasca. I can't believe we're almost done. This has been a crazy, wild ride, and I can't wait for a big conclusion. But for now, here is episode 7 of Borrasca, mile marker 54. Alright, so I just finished the episode. It was amazing. Like, so good. But here we go. We're jumping right into it. So we obviously start in therapy, as we always do, and his urine is finally clean. There's no more weed in the system, so that's always good for Sam, even though, you know, he's still getting high every night. And then Leah mentions, I know what you did to Kyle, and I was like, sitting here, I was like, did I miss something? Like, what happened? But I think that's gonna be talked about more next week in the final episode here. And like, his drug use had nothing to do with it, so it's definitely something that happens after all of this. So I think that's why we're gonna find out more about that next week. He started doing heavy drugs after that, and then they mentioned that no charges were brought onto Sam, and Leah says, I saw the pictures, how could that have happened? So something serious happens to Kyle, and Sam didn't go to jail for it because for some reason. Then we go back in time and we hear what happened after Kimber goes missing. And no one was answering Sam. So he was calling Kimber like crazy, he was calling Kyle like crazy. Like, Kyle didn't answer him for a week. And he finds out from his dad that they never opened a case on for Kimber because they really believe that she went to her family in California. Like, no, she didn't. And his dad doesn't believe him when it comes to these Borrasca parties. He goes, it's just a tall tale. Like, it's not true. So Sam goes over to Kyle's house, and Parker, his brother, is outside. And they start fighting and, you know, going back and forth with it. And then Kyle finally comes out and he talks to Sam. You know, they fight a little bit. They end up like punching each other. But then they talk about it and they reconcile. And they talk about how Kimber would hate to see what they've been doing to each other. They haven't been talking to each other. They're fighting with each other. Like, she would hate that. So they decide to do something about it. We find out that Kyle's mom is pregnant, and we get a really funny joke that Sam's like, shit, I can't believe I'm going to be a dad. I peed my pants. So they go to the woods, and they start looking for Kimber. They see mile marker 1, and Kyle wants to keep going to find Borrasca, and Sam's like, we don't even know where that is or what it is. But he wants to go, so they start walking. They look at the tree, and we get the confirmation that Kimber's name is on the tree. Then Emmeline calls Sam and is like, why don't you come over this weekend? My parents are going to France, like, sleep over. And she's like, I want to lose my virginity to you. And he goes, I wish I could. And she was like, why? What do you have to do? Just, like, say that you're staying at Kyle's house. You know, now that Kimber is out of town, you know, we can hang out more. And he was like, there's a lot going on, and she was like, does it have to do with Kimber? And he's like, yeah. And then she breaks up with him. So then they get to the treehouse, and there's graffiti like all on the walls, and they read some of the messages, and the messages are very jarring. And it's like, help me. I can't see what they look like. We don't come back. Like, really creepy stuff. But then they also notice that some messages are being erased. Now, they see nothing from Kimber because Kyle knows her handwriting, and there's nothing in her handwriting on the walls. Sam takes that as a good sign. I wouldn't have, but because one of hers could have been erased. So they're going this way, and they're up to like mile marker 4, and he goes, wait, no. He goes, when I found mile markers the other time, they were on the other side of the mountain, so these are worthless. So Kyle starts freaking out, you know. He wants to burn down the mountain, the city, everything. Then it starts getting dark, so they're like, let's leave and we'll come back the next day. And they hear the noises that they heard from the night that Kimber got taken, that Kimber got chosen. And Sam remembers hearing those noises the night that Whitney went missing. So then we're back in the therapy with Leah, and that throughout these days that Sam and Kyle were looking, they found 8 mile markers. And Sam is like done like talking, and Leah goes to give him more tea, and he goes, do you have anything stronger, like whiskey? And she gives it to him. And I was like, girl, do you want your job? But she's helping him out. She wants him to talk. So the 8 mile markers that they found were the boulder, which was 1, the tree house is 2, the table, there's like a table, that was 3, and the poster that they found was 4. Then they found 4 more, which was an old couch, a car, a mirror, and a bed. So we find it on the old couch, there was an 8 on it. There's an 8 stitched on the back, that, Sam says. The car was number 7. And then we find out that the mirror was number 14. And Leah's like, what happened to 5 and 6? Like, what's going on? And he's like, the numbers weren't meant to lead anywhere. And finally, she's like, okay, what was the bed? And he goes, mile marker number 54. And then she was like, oh my God. The worst part is that they were mapping all these mile markers, and the bed was in the same spot as a different mile marker just 3 days prior. And Kyle recognizes the bed to be Kimber's bed. So they found these 8 over 9 days, and as that was happening, Kyle was deteriorating. He was just getting crazier and going crazier, and Kimber's bed was the last straw. Like, he was ready to kill someone at that point. On the 10th day, they realized that they were being followed. Kyle doesn't think that the thing that's following them is human, or the thing or something that's doing this is human. And Kyle sees a black thing in front of them, like that blends in with the shadows, and Sam sees a blinding white thing behind them. As they're walking through the woods and finding more mile markers, Sam and Kyle see cops. They see Ramirez, they see Jameson, and then Mr. Cleary comes out. And I'm like, these 3 are not up to any good, because every time they show up, something bad happens. They're like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, we're hiking. And they're like, off the trail? And they're like, yeah. And then Mr. Cleary's like, Sam, don't you have work today? And he goes, I called off, you know. And he goes, that's not a good idea. If you want to become sheriff, you know, you want to have some responsibility. He goes, I don't want to do that. He goes, oh, but you will. Which I'm like, what are you doing? Kyle and one of the cops start going back and forth, because one of the cops say that Kimber was the hot ginger and was saying all this stuff about her, and that set Kyle off. And they're letting off, they know more than they're letting off, because he whispered something into Kyle's ear, and Kyle just like went crazy with him. So Kyle thinks Sam's dad knows more than he's letting off too, but Sam isn't hearing it. Sam then calls Kimber, and it goes straight to voicemail. He apologizes, and he blames himself for this happening to her, and he fills her in on what's been happening, even though it's on voicemail. And then he hangs up, and then the phone rings right away, and he answers right away, and it's Kyle, and he's like, you didn't check caller ID before, did you? And he goes, I do that all the time, and I think it might be her. Which was sad. I was like, oh, that's really sad. Then they hear a scream, and the scream means death. Now we're back in the therapy, and we hear about the shining gentleman, and he goes, it's a what, it's not a who. That's what Sam says to Leah. And Leah's asking all these questions about the mile markers, like, what about this, what about this? And he goes, they weren't marking miles. And she goes, what were they marking? And he goes, victims. But each item was taken from a victim and left there. So 54 was Kimber's like she was the 54th victim. So that's what that is. And their time is up. So she goes, can you come in tomorrow? And he goes, we're scheduled for Tuesday. She goes, but the end is all that's left, right? And he goes, yeah, like that's all that's left. And she wants to meet him the next day after hours, like at 6 o'clock. And he goes, sure, I can meet you then. Because he knows he's not going to get his urine checked then. Like, he knows that this is just like a social thing for the two of them to talk about this. And then he goes back to Eric, and, you know, he's sleeping with the girl that keeps coming to see him, and he really wants to get back into drug dealing, you know, to have a job and stuff like that. And that's how the episode ends. So it's so crazy because this episode was long, but it was a lot of sound design. It was very much like getting to where using sound to move the plot along versus using the dialogue this time, which was really interesting to listen to. I really don't have any theories. I don't know what happened. I can't figure out what happened to Kyle and what Sam did. I can't figure that one out. And I know we'll find out next week on the finale. I can't believe it. I can't believe we're a week away. It is so weird. Next week's will go up at the right time, I hope. And then this Wednesday or tomorrow or Thursday, haven't decided which one yet, my season 4 episodes will go up. Make sure you like this video and make sure you comment below all your theories about how this crazy story will end. And make sure you subscribe to my channel so you are up to date and you are updated every single time a new video of mine goes live. And make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, where I will be posting all the updates about videos. When they'll go up, if it's going to go up later, whatever it may be. And that's it. But don't forget to stay weird, Riverheads.